चढ़दी कला टाइम टीवी।
ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ ਟਾਈਮ ਟੀਵੀ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਕਾਂ ਦਾ ਵੱਲ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਨਿਊਜ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਹੈ। ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਰਿਦਮ। ਖਬਰਾਂ ਦੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂਆਤ ਕਰਨ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਨਜ਼ਰ ਮਾਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕੁਝ ਖਾਸ ਹੈਡਲਾਈਨਸ ਤੇ। ओंटारियो च सोमवार तो लागू होंगे नवे पब्लिक हैल्थ मापदंड, डॉक्टर किरण मूर ने किया ऐलान। कनेडा प्रधानमंत्री जस्टिन ट्रूडो ने लिबरल संसद मैंबरां नूं कीता संबोधित, कहा सरकार वालों कनेडियंस नूं सुरक्षित रखने लई चुके जा रहे ने कदम। एक बार फिर बैंक ऑफ कनेडा वालों ब्याज दरां च नहीं किया गया वाधा, पिछले कुछ महीनों च विकास दर च आया है सुधार। ਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਖਬਰਾਂ ਵਿਸਥਾਰ ਨਾਲ। ਓਂਟਾਰੀਓ ਦੇ ਅੱਗੇ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਹੁਣ ਰੀਓਪਨਿੰਗ ਤੇ ਕੋਵਿਡ ਨਾਲ ਨਜਿੱਠਣ ਲਈ ਸੰਤੁਲਿਤ ਪਹੁੰਚ ਅਪਣਾਉਣ ਦਾ ਸਮਾਂ ਆ ਗਿਆ ਹੈ। ਡਾਕਟਰ ਕਿਰਨ ਮੂਰ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇਸ ਵਾਇਰਸ ਨਾਲ ਰਹਿਣਾ ਸਿੱਖਣਾ ਹੋਵੇਗਾ। ਸੋਮਵਾਰ ਤੋਂ ਲਾਗੂ ਹੋਣ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਨਵੇਂ ਪਬਲਿਕ ਹੈਲਥ ਮਾਪਦੰਡਾਂ ਦਾ ਐਲਾਨ ਕਰਦੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਮੂਰ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਸਮਝਣਾ ਹੋਵੇਗਾ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਓਮਿਕਰੋਨ ਵਰਗੇ ਖਤਰੇ ਨੂੰ ਜੜ ਤੋਂ ਖਤਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ। पिछले 2 सालों तो साडियां जिंदगियां डर दे साए च निकल रही ने ते वायरस सानू नियंत्रित कर रहा है, इसलिए सानू अपनी सोच ही बदलनी होगी।
In this past week, our average percent positivity of tests is 18.41% compared to the previous week when it was 22%. Based on the current stabilization in Ontario's testing strategy, this is likely reflective of a real decline. Because of your extraordinary efforts to help blunt the transmission of Omicron and protect our health system capacity, we can gradually begin easing public health measures on Monday, January 31st, while still keeping up with the measures that are helping reduce transmission. This means that on Monday, we in Ontario will increase social gathering limits to 10 people indoors and 25 people outdoors, allow 50% capacity for most indoor public settings, such as restaurants, casinos, cinemas, with proof of vaccination, allow 50% capacity or 500 people, whichever is less, for spectator capacity in sporting events, concert venues, and theaters. And the 50% capacity will also include religious services, rites, or ceremonies. While this is positive news, we must remain vigilant in the face of this virus, and our continued reopening efforts must be implemented cautiously. This does not mean all hospitals will immediately resume the surgical and procedural activities permitted, and we are working with Ontario Health and the sector on this first step with additional details to be provided in the coming days. Once again, I want to thank Ontarians for the sacrifices you have made, not only in these past weeks, but over the last 2 years. January 25th marked the 2-year anniversary of the first case of COVID-19 identified in Ontario and in Canada. These last 24 months have been difficult and stressful for too many families, marked by tragedy and loss. All of this can take a toll on our mental health and well-being. And while Bell's Let's Talk Day may have been yesterday, let's keep the conversation going every day. Check in on your neighbors, your friends, and your family. And if you need help, do not hesitate to reach out and ask for it, whether it is for loved ones or from one of the many mental health resources in the province. Practicing self-care and staying connected has never been more important. Thank you. Merci. What we've learned through our Public Health Ontario partners who know of the incidence of Delta versus Omicron, they've told us that the vast majority of outbreaks in the community are absolutely Omicron, 99.9%. But in hospitals, given the severity associated with Delta, that their whole genome sequencing is telling us around 10% of admissions in the hospital are still relevant to Delta. And the whole genome sequencing data takes weeks to get back, so we'd have to correlate that with the death certificate to ascertain whether it was Delta and or Omicron. We absolutely agree that a significant proportion of the deaths in January would have been because death is a delayed signal. from an outbreak, given that we've got access to healthcare and an ability to try to protect people through hospitalization and intensive care unit settings. In the first several weeks of January, we're confident that a significant proportion of them were from Delta, but now we need to tie them also with whole genome sequencing data.
ਕੰਜ਼ਰਵੇਟਿਵ ਐਮਪੀਜ਼ ਪੀਆਰਏ ਪੋਲੀਵਰ ਅਤੇ ਬ੍ਰੈਂਡ ਵਿਸ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਤੇ ਕਾਕਸ ਦੀ ਮੀਟਿੰਗਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਪੱਤਰਕਾਰਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਸੰਖੇਪ 'ਚ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕੀਤੀ। ਇਸ ਦੌਰਾਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਟਰੱਕਰਸ ਤੇ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਕਾਫਲੇ ਤੇ ਟਿੱਪਣੀ ਕੀਤੀ ਗਈ ਜੋ ਸੰਘੀ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਦੇ ਕੋਵਿਡ ਟੀਕੇ ਦੇ ਆਦੇਸ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿਰੋਧ 'ਚ ਓਟਾਵਾ ਵੱਲ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ। ਇਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰ ਫਿਰ ਦੇਸ਼ ਅੰਦਰ ਵੱਧ ਰਹੀ ਮਹਿੰਗਾਈ ਕਾਰਨ ਟਰੂਡੋ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਘੇਰਿਆ।
When there's a left-wing protest on Parliament Hill, we don't see the Liberal media going through every single name of the people who attends to try and find one person that they can disparage the whole group with. You know, we don't see CBC, for example, has been accused by its own employees of systemic racism, and yet we don't see the media here generalize that everyone who works at the CBC is a racist. Whenever you have 5 or 10,000 people who are part of any group, you're bound to have a number who have or say unacceptable things, and they should be individually responsible for the things they say and do. But that doesn't mean we disparage the thousands of hard-working, law-abiding, and peaceful truckers who quite frankly have kept all of you alive the last 2 years by filling your grocery shelves with the food that you eat and filling your homes with the products that you rely upon. So I think that it is possible to hold individually responsible anyone who says or does anything unacceptable while showing support for the hardworking, law-abiding, peace-loving truckers who are fighting for their freedom and their livelihoods, and on whom we have depended for our very existence over the last 2 years.
Well, the meeting's still going on and things are looking good and we got a lot of work to do. We have barely had any parliament in 6 months. We got to get focused on the things that Canadians care about, right? Like we got to talk about inflation, the cost of housing. Man, like my assessment in my neighborhood in Abbotsford went up 46%. How does a young graduate afford a house today? How does someone that makes a 6-figure income afford a house today? Right. The Canadian dream is being taken away by a lot of young people. And if Parliament's not focused on that, I think we're going to be debating C8 next week. That's what all Canadians want us to be talking about. How the government spending, a third of which outlined by the Parliamentary Budget Officer, has nothing to do with COVID. What's the impact on our long-term finances and the well-being of Canadians who are going to be left to pay that debt in the future? Those are the questions that need to be answered right now, and that's what the Conservative Party is focusing on.
And obviously top of mind,
Canadians don't know where to turn right now. And I think the Ottawa media, the establishment media, has been looking for controversies with some of these truckers. They're trying to find all the bad things that someone might have said on social media. But you know what? There's a lot of people that are coming to Ottawa who don't know what else to do,
right,
because their lives have been impacted just as much as mine and yours the last 2 years.
ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਪ੍ਰਧਾਨ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਜਸਟਿਨ ਟਰੂਡੋ ਨੇ ਵਰਚੁਅਲ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਲਿਬਰਲ ਸੰਸਦ ਮੈਂਬਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸੰਬੋਧਿਤ ਕੀਤਾ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸੰਸਦ ਮੈਂਬਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਭਰੋਸਾ ਦਿਵਾਇਆ ਕਿ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨਸ ਦੀ ਸਿਹਤ, ਆਰਥਿਕਤਾ ਤੇ ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਦੀ ਰੱਖਿਆ ਲਈ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਟੀਕਾਕਰਨ ਕਰਵਾਉਣ ਲਈ ਉਤਸ਼ਾਹਿਤ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ ਉਹ ਸਭ ਕੁਝ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਜੋ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਨੇ। ਜ਼ਿਕਰਯੋਗ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਕੋਵਿਡ ਐਕਸਪੋਜ਼ਰ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਪ੍ਰਧਾਨ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਜਸਟਿਨ ਟਰੂਡੋ ਖੁਦ ਨੂੰ ਆਈਸੋਲੇਟ ਕਰ ਲਿਆ ਅਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਪਬਲਿਕ ਹੈਲਥ ਗਾਈਡਲਾਈਨਸ ਦੀ ਪਾਲਣਾ ਕੀਤੀ ਜਾ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ।
For moms and dads supporting their families, for nurses, doctors and frontline workers keeping us safe, for truckers and farmers who put food on our tables, for people across the country making sacrifices every single day, for the millions of Canadians who got vaccinated and who are getting their booster shots. This Liberal team is doing everything to encourage people to get vaccinated, because vaccines are the best protection not just for our health, but for our economy and our freedoms. We're ready to keep standing up to politicians like Erin O'Toole, who think we should do less to encourage vaccination and less to support families, workers, and small businesses. The Conservative Party still doesn't get that the best thing we can do for our economy is to get past this pandemic. That's how we put lockdowns behind us. That's how we keep our supply chains moving. And that's how we secure an even stronger economic recovery. Canadians know that our government has their backs. We'll keep working together to lead the world on vaccination and to lead our peers on the jobs recovery. This Liberal team is ready to fight harder than ever to build a stronger and more resilient Canada. Families know that we're here to fight for them. Just this week, we announced a childcare agreement with Nunavut. This was the 12th childcare agreement signed with provinces and territories. These agreements will save families across the country thousands of dollars, with many families in many parts of the country already seeing those savings. We're focusing on making life more affordable for the middle class and for people working hard to join it. And that includes making housing more affordable too. Last week, we announced that we'll exceed our initial target of creating 10,000 new units for vulnerable people with the Rapid Housing Initiative. And we'll continue to put measures forward that increase housing supply and support Canadians who are looking to buy their first home and build their future. Together, we'll continue doing more of the big things Canadians sent us here to do: on climate change, on keeping our communities safe, on reconciliation, on important issues that matter to Canadians and to the world. My friends, with the return of Parliament on Monday, I'm looking forward to be there virtually while I finish my isolation, but I'll be there working hard with all of you to keep bringing positive change to every part of our country.
बैंक ऑफ कनेडा वालों अपनी व्याज दरां च कोई वादा नहीं कीता गया है, पर आने वाले दिनां च बैंक ने महंगाई नूं ठल पाउण लई इन्हां व्याज दरां च वादा करन दी चेतावनी भी दित्ती है। सेंट्रल बैंक वालों इस साल मार्च तो व्याज दरां च वादा कीते जाण दी संभावना है। बैंक ऑफ कनेडा ने भी कहा कि सूचक अंक दर्शाउंदे ने कि अर्थचारा ली उत्ते आ रहा है। लेबर मार्केट भी महामारी तो पहला वाले पद्धर उत्ते पहुंच गई है। बैंक ऑफ कनेडा ने भी कहा कि सीनियर नीति काड़ियां वालों जेड़ी पेशी निगोई की गई सी, उस नालों विकास दर पिछले कुछ महीनों च मजबूत हुई है।
First, the emergency monetary measures needed to support the economy through the pandemic are no longer required, and they have ended. Second, interest rates need to increase to control inflation. Canadians should expect a rising path for interest rates. And third, while reopening an economy after repeated waves of COVID is complicated, Canadians can be confident that the Bank of Canada will control inflation. We are committed to bringing inflation back to target. Let me take each of these in turn. The bank's response to the pandemic has been forceful. Throughout, our actions have been guided by our mandate. We have been resolute and deliberate, communicating clearly with Canadians on our extraordinary measures to support the economy and on the conditions for their exit. When we introduced emergency liquidity measures to support core funding markets, we said they would end when market functioning was restored. And they did. When we launched quantitative easing, we said it would continue until the recovery was well underway. And as the recovery progressed, we began tapering QE and ended it in October. Today marks the final step in exiting from emergency policies. We said exceptional forward guidance would continue until slack was absorbed. With the strength of the recovery through the second half of 2021, the Governing Council now judges this condition has been met. As such, we are removing our commitment to hold our policy rate at its floor of 0.25%. Second, we want to clearly signal that we expect interest rates will need to increase. A lot of factors are contributing to the uncomfortably high inflation we are experiencing today, and many of these are global, and they reflect the unique circumstances of the pandemic. As the pandemic fades, conditions will normalize, and inflation will come down. And finally, Canadians can be assured the Bank of Canada will control inflation. Prices for many goods and services are rising quickly, and this is making it harder for Canadians to make ends meet, particularly those on lower incomes. Prices for food, gasoline, and housing have all risen faster than usual. We expect inflation will remain close to 5% through the first half of 2022 and then move lower. There is some uncertainty about how quickly inflation will come down because we've never experienced a pandemic like this before. But Canadians can be assured that we will use our monetary policy tools to control inflation.
ਸਰੀ ਟੀਚਰਜ਼ ਐਸੋਸੀਏਸ਼ਨ ਸਰੀ ਦੇ ਪਬਲਿਕ ਸਕੂਲਾਂ ਦੇ 5800 ਤੋਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਟੀਚਰਾਂ ਦੀ ਨੁਮਾਇੰਦਗੀ ਕਰਦੀ ਹੈ। ਇਸ ਐਸੋਸੀਏਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਮੁਖੀ ਦੀ ਵਾਗਡੋਰ ਆਮ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਮੁਖਤਾਰਾ ਭਾਈਚਾਰੇ ਦੇ ਵਿਅਕਤੀਆਂ ਕੋਲ ਰਹਿੰਦੀ ਹੈ, ਪਰ 1974 ਵਿੱਚ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਮੁਖੀ ਇੱਕ ਸਿਆਸ ਰੰਗ ਦੇ ਵਿਅਕਤੀ ਬਣੇ ਸਨ ਅਤੇ ਐਸੋਸੀਏਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ 81 ਸਾਲਾ ਇਤਿਹਾਸ 'ਚ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਵਾਰ ਇੱਕ ਰੰਗਦਾਰ ਭਾਈਚਾਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਸੰਬੰਧਿਤ ਔਰਤ ਜਤਿੰਦਰ ਬੀਰ ਇਸ ਦੀ ਪ੍ਰਧਾਨ ਬਣੀ ਹੈ।
Well, I'm really excited. बहुत खुश. I'm very, very happy. This is a really great opportunity. It comes with a lot of struggles and hard work, but it's about time, and I'm thankful for the Surrey Teachers Association to have elected me in this role. Yeah, I think it is a very important step in the right direction. We have lots of South Asians, Punjabi folks in different professions, and leadership in schools we're still working on that. We still want to see more leadership, administrative leadership, senior management leadership, superintendent leadership. And so this is another role in leadership that I'm hoping that more and more people look like me that can lead, because we do have diverse perspectives, and it's important that our voices also count. So, मेरा birth India. मेरे parents ਪਿੰਡ ਸਾਰੋਬਾਦ ਹੁਸ਼ਿਆਰਪੁਰ ਦੇ ਨੇੜੇ ਆ। ਮੇਰਾ ਡੈਡੀ already ਇੱਥੇ ਹੈਗਾ ਸੀ। ਮਮ ਦਾ ਮੇਰਾ brother 1974 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ immigrant ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਥੇ Canada ਦੇ ਆਏ ਸੀ। And you know, I remember as a child, you know, Mom and Dad did double jobs, everything, you know, and Mom used to come off of night shift, get us ready to go to school and to give us all those opportunities. And the most important thing that they always said was, go to school, finish school. It gives us opportunities. And so I have seen their struggles as immigrants. We have gone through those struggles as immigrants. Jada Mashorti si, we never saw, people of color in classrooms. I think I maybe one or two teachers in the system when I grew up. I've always lived in Surrey, gone to school in Surrey, and so things have changed a lot. And so ultimately, I think it's about seva. It's seva to people. It's seva to my community. I get nothing out of this, but I hope that others will be able to see themselves and hope hopefully they'll also join in leadership roles, because like I said, it is important. There's nobody to call. Yeah, so did a class size, yeah, this is a bargaining, right? So you have to go and bargain it with the employer. But if it comes as a mandate, from the government, if the government fully believes that class sizes smaller class sizes could make a difference could make a difference in our communities, they can actually, put that in place. They can implement those changes. And so make it a little bit easier, because it's not just about our bargaining, it's our kids' learning conditions. And so it does matter to society. Smaller classes, more room, better ventilation, and really more communication. Our classes are really complex. We've got different kinds of kids in there. They have different kinds of needs.
Or at least stop a small percentage of them.
I feel like at the start of the pandemic, the government shut down and said the vaccines were our way out of here. We're over 80% vaccinated in this province. I think over 90. We're going to have to get boosters.
It's our body, our choice.
It shouldn't be forced upon anyone, right? It's not an all or nothing package deal.
With all these mandates to work, we can't go freely to shop, to eat. It's ridiculous.
Creating the divide between two different types of people when we've always been together as one, and now it's just complete separation, and it's devastating.
Well, there's no hate speech, there's no we and they, there's no vax and anti-vax. It's the freedom to choose our own destiny.
Oh, I'm grateful. I wouldn't expect so many people.
Everybody has their own reasons why they're here, whether it's, to get rid of mandates, whether it's for freedom, whatever it is.
So it's awesome. By God, it's bringing a lot of people together. Unity is what we need in this country.
Saturday, until everyone leaves there, I'll be there. I'm stacked. I have everything there. I got food, I got water, and I'm going to wait it out.
The convoy itself is becoming a symbol of the fatigue and the division. We're seeing in this country.
The small fringe minority of people who are on their way to Ottawa or who are holding unacceptable views.
ਵਾਤਾਵਰਣ ਤੇ ਜਲਵਾਯੂ ਪਰਿਵਰਤਨ ਦੇ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਸਟੀਫਨ ਗਿਲਬੋਰਟ ਨੇ ਇੱਕ ਵਰਚੁਅਲ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ ਕਾਨਫਰੰਸ ਦੌਰਾਨ ਘੱਟ ਕਾਰਬਨ ਆਰਥਿਕਤਾ ਫੰਡ ਲਈ ਫੰਡਿੰਗ ਦੇ ਦੂਜੇ ਦੌਰ ਦੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂਆਤ ਦੀ ਘੋਸ਼ਣਾ ਕੀਤੀ। ਉਹਨੇ ਵੀ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਕਿ $200 ਮਿਲੀਅਨ ਦਾ ਨਿਵੇਸ਼ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਭਰ 'ਚ ਸਥਾਨਕ ਪ੍ਰਦੂਸ਼ਣ ਨੂੰ ਘੱਟ ਕਰਨ ਦੀਆਂ ਪਹਿਲ ਕਦਮੀਆਂ ਵੱਲ ਜਾਵੇਗਾ।
Because climate change will still be with us when COVID-19 is long gone, and the challenges and opportunities of the low carbon energy efficiency world won't wait. We've seen in Canada firsthand the effects of climate change just a few months ago with the devastating flooding in both BC and Atlantic Canada, which took lives, washed away homes and businesses, and caused hundreds of millions of dollars in damages. We know that the problem is carbon pollution. And we know that the whole world is in a competitive race for solutions, a race that is unlocking investment, innovation, and job creation at a pace that will explode when this pandemic is behind us. Over the last 6 years, Canada has finally succeeded in changing the trajectory of our polluting emissions. Thanks to the work of millions of Canadians, provinces, communities, Indigenous peoples, businesses and organizations, we are now in a path to achieve the
ਹਸਦੂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਇੱਕ ਵਰਚੁਅਲ ਨਿਊਜ਼ ਕਾਨਫਰੰਸ ਕੀਤੀ ਗਈ। ਇਸ ਕਾਨਫਰੰਸ ਦੌਰਾਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ 'ਚ ਵਸਦੇ ਸਵਦੇਸ਼ੀ ਭਾਈਚਾਰਿਆਂ 'ਚ ਫੈਲ ਰਹੇ ਕੋਵਿਡ ਪ੍ਰਤੀ ਸੰਘੀ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਦੇ ਜਵਾਬ ਬਾਰੇ ਇੱਕ ਅਪਡੇਟ ਪ੍ਰਦਾਨ ਕੀਤੀ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਕਿ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਹਰੋ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਕਦਮ ਚੁੱਕਿਆ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ ਜਿਸ ਨਾਲ ਇਸ ਵਾਇਰਸ ਦੀ ਗਤੀ ਨੂੰ ਹੌਲੀ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾ ਸਕੇ।
And as we provided updates in recent weeks, we continue to work directly with communities to help prepare and for and respond to outbreaks. More detail is available in our accompanying news release for this week's update, but I do want to point out some of the great work being done with partners across the country, including a new app that's being developed by the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations, FSI, and to help build vaccine confidence. The Talking Stick app, which is expected to launch in the next month or so, is an innovative forum for First Nations to ask questions about COVID-19 and vaccines. The Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs has an ambassador initiative that Indigenous Services is partnering with on to provide Indigenous teams of 8 to 10 people who can provide immediate resource support to First Nations communities in their COVID response. And in six nations of the Grand River, some great and innovative community programs have been happening. This has included a mobile bus vaccination clinic, drive-through events to distribute rapid tests and masks, call-in radio shows with medical experts, and recording podcasts with local community members about vaccine hesitancy. These are just some of the great examples from communities across the country doing their part, thinking outside.
ਤੋਂ ਕਨੈਕਟਡ ਫਲਾਈਟ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਯਾਤਰੀਆਂ ਲਈ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਪਹੁੰਚਦੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਤੀਜੇ ਦੇਸ਼ ਤੋਂ ਕੋਵਿਡ ਦੇ ਰਵਾਨਗੀ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਨੈਗੇਟਿਵ ਨਤੀਜੇ ਹਾਸਲ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਹੁਣ ਲੋੜ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਵੇਗੀ। ਹੁਣ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਆਉਣ ਵਾਲੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਯਾਤਰੀਆਂ ਲਈ ਇੱਕੋ ਜਿਹੀਆਂ ਪ੍ਰੀ ਐਂਟਰੀ ਟੈਸਟ ਦੀ ਜ਼ਰੂਰਤ ਹੋਵੇਗੀ। ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਦੇ ਮੱਧ ਅਰਕਨਾਸ 'ਚ ਇੱਕ ਘਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਅੱਗ ਲੱਗਣ ਕਾਰਨ 2 ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਸਮੇਤ 4 ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੀ ਮੌਤ ਹੋ ਗਈ। ਅਕਨਾਸ ਰਾਜ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਨੇ ਇੱਕ ਬਿਆਨ 'ਚ ਵੀ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਕਿ ਹੌਟ ਸਪ੍ਰਿੰਗਸ ਦੇ ਉੱਤਰ ਪੂਰਬ ਤੋਂ 5 किलोमीटर दूर स्थित एक घर 'ਚ शुक्रवार सवेरे 10 ਵਜੇ ਤੋਂ ਥੋੜੀ ਦੇਰ ਬਾਅਦ ਲੱਗੀ ਅੱਗ। ਜਦੋਂ ਤੱਕ ਫਾਇਰ ਬ੍ਰਿਗੇਡ ਦੀਆਂ ਗੱਡੀਆਂ ਪਹੁੰਚੀਆਂ ਉਦੋਂ ਤੱਕ ਅੱਗ ਪੂਰੇ ਘਰ 'ਚ ਫੈਲ ਚੁੱਕੀ ਸੀ। ਬਿਆਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਗਿਆ ਕਿ ਅੱਗ ਲੱਗਣ ਕਾਰਨ 2 ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਸਮੇਤ 4 ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੀ ਮੌਤ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਹੈ। ਅੱਗ ਲੱਗਣ ਦੇ ਕਾਰਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਅਜੇ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੱਗ ਸਕਿਆ ਹੈ। ਰਾਜ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਅਤੇ ਫਾਇਰ ਵਿਭਾਗ ਦੇ ਅਧਿਕਾਰੀ ਮਾਮਲੇ ਦੀ ਜਾਂਚ ਕਰ